Good morning, friends. Welcome back to Read Aloud. Today is Friday, April 17th, and we are going to continue our read aloud of the Junkyard Wonders. So, in front of you, you should have that piece of paper that you started writing on yesterday that started where you answered questions about the story elements. And you should have another blank piece of paper with you so that you can answer the exit ticket. And, of course, something to write with. All right. So yesterday we started off the story and we learned about the main character, the setting, things that we knew about the main character, and the problem. But I want to clarify the problem a little bit. So yesterday we talked about the problem being that the other kids were still making fun of the kids in the junkyard classroom. And that definitely is part of the problem, but I think we can add another layer to that. So the reason why people or these kids that are not in the junkyard class are making fun of them is because they don't see how amazing they are. Mrs. Peterson sees how amazing they are, and they all see how amazing each other are. But the kids who are outside the classroom don't see that, and they are really, really mean to the junkyard kids, or the junkyard wonders. So, um, we know that the problem is about what the main character wants and what's getting in their way. So the problem of this story is that the little girl wants to be accepted by everyone and treated uh like like she would want to be treated. And the other kids are not doing that. So yes, the boy being mean to the kids in the junkyard class is definitely part of the problem, but it's not the whole problem because she just wants to be accepted and seen for who she really is. All right, my friends, let us start reading. So where we left off, the kids had gone to the junkyard to gather some material so that they could create their own inventions. So let's start reading. All right. For the next few weeks during the last hour of our class time, we worked on our new inventions. As we hammered and sawed and cut, Mrs. Peterson read to us Great Expectations, David Copperfield, and sometimes poetry. But every day, Mrs. Peterson reminded us some people look at things the way they are and cry, why? But I want you to look at things and see what they could be and ask, why not? Gibby was the boss of our plane project. He removed all the outer skin, built in new balsa struts, and repaired a lot of the skeleton. Ravan replaced the old skin with pure silk. Finally, we painted the rebuilt plane with low resistance lacquer. But would it fly? Because that's what Gibby wants. Gibby wants it to go to the moon. Gotta move my face here all the way. Let's move it up here. Here we go. The day came when we were to present our stupendous project. The Cinnamon Tribe was first. They unveiled a tangled sculpture of hollow tubes. Well, Mrs. Peterson asked the Cinnamons, what is your invention? A, a vibraphonium, the Cinnamons called out. It took 3 people to play it. Fabulous! The Almonds made a hanging wall maze full of levers, fulcrums, and counterweights. When ball bearings were loaded into the top, they clattered down, bounced, shivered, and jumped as they ran through the maze. Stupendous! When the Lemons uncovered their device, none of us could figure out what it was. This is perpetual movement, Alice Schaefer gave his invention a shove. It leaned way forward, ringing bells, pulling at strings, and twisting back and forth. We must have watched that thing for 15 minutes. It just did not stop. When it was the Vanilla's turn, Gibby pulled the covering off. But that's just an old airplane, an old model airplane, Booth Schiffer called out. Wrong, Gibby shouted back. This here airplane is gonna defy gravity. This baby is going all the way to the moon. Everyone laughed. Mrs. Peterson spoke up. If Gilbert says it is destined for the moon, I, for one, believe him. Come on, Gibby, will that thing fly? Someone shouted. Oh, it will fly, all right. We flew it like a kite off of Putnam's Hill, Jody trumpeted. We had. That was off a hill. For it to fly by itself, though, we need a propulsion unit. He means a motor, I added. And we found the perfect one. It will take the plane right into the sky. Trouble is, it's expensive. That's when the tribe stepped in. All of them. Mrs. Peterson asked the whole class if they'd help raise money for the motor. Everyone cheered. It was unanimous. They would. So all the kids in the class are going to come together and help them raise money for this motor. Oh, here we go again. For the next few weeks, all of the moms made cakes and cookies and sold them at bake sales. Our dad sponsored car washes. All of us junkyard kids used things we had gotten from Mr. Beach's and made gadgets to sell. By that spring, we had made enough money to buy that perfect motor. The next thing to do was set a date for launch. We wanted everyone in school to see it. That's when Gibby thought of the school science fair. Perfect, Jody said. He had started missing a lot of school, not feeling well. When he was there, Ravan was at his side. Sometimes she even helped him climb the stairs. We could launch it from the school roof and it would fly right over the field where the fair is. The class cheered. Maybe, Mrs. Peterson said. But wait, this magnificent airship has to have a name. Everyone started calling out names like Fabulous Flyer and Windy Wings or Windy Wings. Jody stood up. He sure looked pale. I think she needs to be called Junkyard Wonder because we made it out of junk and because we Junkyard Wonders made it. That plane is us. It was just a week later when Mrs. Peterson was late. She was never late. Her eyes were red and she looked sad. Please sit down. I have some very bad news. There was silence. We have lost Jody Beach. He passed away last night in his sleep. Then she put her face in her hands and cried. How? I managed to sputter. Raven and I held hands. Jody had a disease that made his body grow faster than it should. It just kept growing and growing so fast that his dear heart couldn't keep up. It just gave out, Mrs. Peterson answered. Later that day, the whole class went to the woods behind the school to collect flowers and to remember Jody. Now I know what the plane has to be called, a voice called out. At first, we couldn't figure out who was talking. Then, to our shock, we realized it was Ravan. None of us knew she could talk. He wanted it to be called the Junkyard Wonder. That's what it has to be. Tears rolled down her cheeks. All of us agreed. So that's a very sad part of the book. Gibby's dad mounted the motor on the machine and placed it on a table at the back of his workshop. When we saw it, we all gathered around. It was so beautiful. We tried it out more than once from the hill in back of Gibby's house. It seemed to work. But would it work from the roof for the school on fair day? And would we even get a chance to try? The stairway to the roof was always locked. Maybe Mr. Weeks, the janitor, could help us get to the roof. I think he will, Mrs. Peterson said, but it will have to be a secret. The day before the fair, we could hardly contain ourselves. Would newspapers be there? Scientists from a nearby university? We huddled together on the playground, chattering about our plans for the launch. Cheese it. Look who's listening, Tom warned. It was Barton Poole. He had heard everything. He leaned into Gibby's face. Your dad wears skirts. Then he sneered. And no one's allowed on the school roof. Got it? No one. And I'm telling the principal about your stupid plans. So we know that this Barton Poole character is one of the mean characters that makes fun of the Junkyard Wonders. First of all, he tells he tells Gibby that his dad wears skirts, which number one isn't true, as you can see over here. He's wearing pants. And number two, it wouldn't matter if he did. Um, and he also called the plan stupid, and he's going to tell the principal. So this is another really mean kid. And sure enough, when we got back to our schoolroom, the principal was waiting for us, and Barton Poole was with him. I have been informed of your plans for the science fair, Mrs. Peterson. There will be no launching from the school roof and no fuel-driven airplanes anywhere on the school grounds. It could be very dangerous. Mr. Weeks will keep your plane in the janitorial closet until the end of the school year. The principal turned on his heel and left the room. Mr. Weeks looked very sad as he carried the Wonder out of the room. Sorry, kids, he said. We were stunned. Ravan started crying. This was going to be for Jody, she whispered. Mrs. Peterson said nothing for a time. Then she began, "We are going to launch the Wonder tomorrow, just as we planned, and from the roof." Mrs. Peterson told us to be at Mr. Weeks's closet tomorrow morning, the morning of the fair. So it sounds like Mrs. Peterson has a plan. Our secret weapon turned out to be Mr. McDonald, Gibby's dad. If Mr. McDonald stayed with us during the launch, the principal was okay with it. We couldn't believe the good news. Mr. Weeks handed the Wonder to Gibby's dad. "Let's take her up," he said to us. On the roof, he could see kids pour. On the roof, we could see kids pouring onto the field to look at science exhibits that were being set up. Ravan pulled gorgeous silk streamers that she had hand painted out of a bag and let them stay rolled up at the edge of the roof. Then, with Tom's help, Gibby and his dad put the Wonder in place. They carefully connected the engine to a car battery, then primed the pump to deliver the fuel from the tin sitting next to it into the machine. Then they pumped the fuel into the plane. We all stood back and watched. "Maybe it'll go all the way to Lansing," I speculated. "Maybe even to Detroit," Tom said. "Maybe around the whole world," Ravan whispered. "No," Gibby said with a grin. "This baby is going all the way to the moon, far way away." When the whole school assembled on the field, Mrs. Peterson signaled Gibby's dad to begin the countdown to start the engine. Mr. McDonald knelt in front of it while Gibby held the plane still, spinning the propeller over and over again. But the engine didn't catch. We held our breaths. "Pump the intake again," Mr. McDonald said to Gibby. He asked some of the boys to hold on to the Wonder, and you have to let it go just at the right moment, or it will bank left or right. Understand? He spun the propeller a few more times, and then, with a loud bang and a roar, the propeller started spinning. Blue smoke puffed out. Someone in the field yelled, and everybody looked up at the roof. That was when Ravan unfurled her banners down the side of the building. "Almost to speed," Gibby's dad hollered. 10, 9, 8. When he got to 1, Mr. McDonald hollered, "Let her go." The Junkyard Wonder shot out of everybody's hands. It was airborne. First it went out over the field. Then, as suddenly as it started, it sputtered and seemed to stall. Then the engine roared to life again with a noise that was deafening. The Wonder's nose pointed straight up, up and up, straight toward the sun. We all ran to the wall of the roof and watched breathlessly as it streaked through the what does that say? Here we go. We all ran to the wall of the roof and watched breathlessly as it streaked through the cloud cover, then appeared above, ever skyward straight to the stratosphere. We all watched until it became a speck in the sky. Then we couldn't see it anymore. Even though the science department from the local university was there, along with the school board and the newspapers, for all of us, it was only Mrs. Peterson that mattered, and Jody. Tears glistened in Mrs. Peterson's eyes as she watched the Wonder climb into the heavens. "Like I said," Gibby whispered, "that baby is going straight to the moon." All right, my friends. Now that we finished the book, we can now answer the next question. So, what is the solution of the story? We know that the problem was that the little girl wanted to be seen and accepted for who she was. Um, s- so we've got to figure out what the solution is. I will turn back in the story, and you can write down your answer. Go ahead. All right, so when we're thinking about the solution of the story, we know that we have to think of the problem. And the problem of the story was that the little girl wasn't being seen as the person that she is, and she wasn't respected by the rest of her peers, the peers who were not in the junkyard class. So the solution of the story is that after they flew the plane for everybody to see, the rest of the kids could see what the kids in the junkyard class were capable of. They could see what they could do. So the solution of the story is that the junkyard wonder flew, because remember, the junkyard wonder is the name of the plane, too. So the junkyard wonder flew, and the rest of the school could see what the kids in the junkyard class could do. Now we can answer the last question on that page. What is the lesson learned? So I will flip through the pages again while you write down what you believe the lesson learned is. Go ahead. All right, so when we're thinking about the lesson learned, we're thinking about what the author wants to teach us by writing this story. So at the beginning of the story, um, when the girl found out that she was in the junkyard class, she was not very excited about it. But then Mrs. Peterson told them that they were all geniuses and that she thought that they were capable of this greatness. Um, and when they went to the junkyard to pick out junk that they wanted to use to make their own inventions, um, they were determined to create these inventions, so much so that when the plane needed a motor and the motor was expensive, the whole class banded together to raise money to buy this engine or the motor. Um, and even when the boy in the story who was being really mean told on them to the principal and told them their plans because he knew that they were going to get in trouble, they still were determined to fly this plane. And the plane eventually flew. And the last thing that Gibby said in the book was, "Like I said," Gibby whispered, "that baby is going straight to the moon," which was his plan all along. So the lesson learned is if you set your mind to something, you can achieve your goal and you shouldn't let anyone get in your way. They didn't let the bullies get in their way, they didn't let the price of the engine get in their way, and they achieved what they wanted to. So the lesson learned is that you can do anything you can put your mind to, and you shouldn't let anything get in your way. All right, my friends, now that we've answered all of those questions, we can use those the answers to those questions to do our exit ticket. So let me move my face again because it seems to always be in the way. Um, so our exit ticket today is going to be a retell. So using the questions that you answered while watching the video lessons, write or record. So you can either write on paper or record right onto Seesaw a retell of the Junkyard Wonders. Be sure to include all story elements as well as key details. So you can either use a piece of paper to write down the retell of the story with a paper and a pencil, or you can take a video or voice recording of yourself on Seesaw and say the retell of the story. Um, Remember, this story was a lot longer than our stories typically are, so make sure that you're looking back in the text to make sure that you included all of the story elements and all of the important details. You might have a few more important details for this retell because the story is longer, but make sure that the details that you do include are key details and are important to your telling of the story. All right, my friends. So today is the last day before April break. On Monday, we're having a week-long break. Um, this means that there won't be any new videos posted on Seesaw or YouTube, but you should either watch old videos that have already been made of books that we've already read online, or there are going to be new activities for you to do on your own. In the distance learning folder, there will be a new folder called April Vacation. And in there will be activities that you can do for math and word study and read aloud and writing. Um, Additionally, I know a few of you know this, but I've been doing read alouds on bonus read alouds on YouTube for Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. That was the first one we did. And I am doing James and the Giant Peach now. There isn't any work to go along with these books, but they're just some read alouds for fun. Um, so if if you're looking for something to do over the break, there are always those read alouds as well, and I will post the links to those playlists in the April break folder. All right, my friends, have an awesome break. Make sure that you get lots of rest, spend time with your family, and do something super fun every single day. Bye, friends.